And that's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls from around the world. Welcome back to another episode of the Leel Show. It's going down, just so you know. It is. Believe me, you. Because when I tell you we got a stacked show, we do. We got some good topics here tonight. Pretty light on the topics, but definitely a lot of depth, a lot of dialogue, a lot of content. You know how we do. We keep it real. And make sure you like and subscribe to the channel because that's the first thing, man. We got to support new media. Get these dinosaurs out of here. And in comes the new. In comes the truth. In comes the real. I am the real Lil. You know the deal. So make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. I got my guy Lee back in the virtual building. And Lee, right before you came on, the power went out, and my guy
Yeah,
Lee said, "Let there be light," and there was light. I
yeah,
appreciate the God complex here. Now, hopefully, the lights stay on. Lee, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Look, one of those summer storms down in Houston, man, and that can be a lot of energy. So power went off, but by the grace of God, it popped back on. So hey, that means we got to give them what they want, man. Let's talk about it.
Definitely. And you know what, man? Speaking of power, we got the power to make changes. We got the power to support new media. So make sure you support new media. I just want to throw that nugget in there. Now, when I tell you we got a stack show, I'm going to give you the rundown. We're going to talk about Jaylen Brown. Obviously, we did a show about Jaylen Brown and the trade. We talked about it from a basketball perspective, but we're going to give you a question, which is this bigger than basketball or is it not? Or a simple basketball move. We're going to break that down. We are also going to talk about Brandon Aiyuk, who has been going rogue lately. All right. Somebody with a real Brandon Aiyuk come forth, not the clone. I don't know what this idiot here is doing. This must be a clone. We're gonna talk about Brandon Ayuk and if he's burned bridges, is his career derailed? Is the commander still in play? We're gonna break it down, and also we're gonna talk about Alicia Keys, okay? Because I got the keys. All right, we're gonna talk about Alicia Keys in her comments regarding equal rights when it comes to women. We're gonna break that down, and college football making moves. So Lee, we might as well start off with the first topic that we have here, which is going to be focused on Jaylen Brown. Was the Jaylen Brown trade more basketball driven or something bigger than basketball? Now, Lee, before we get in here, I got a couple clips that I want to run here. I'm going to run two, and then I'm going to run another one in the middle of our laps here. So the first one I'm going to play is with Jaylen Brown himself. If the video can cooperate, here we go. We're going to play the Jaylen Brown one, and then we are going to play another one, and then Lee will have you take it from there. So let's hear from Jaylen Brown. If we can find the Jaylen Brown clip. Here we go. Jaylen Brown.
I could stand up for myself, which I've been doing. I feel like that's a narrative that people have been using for a long time to try to attack me and my character. I could rebuttal. But what I really want to say to this is we got to stop with the anonymous. We got to stop with the anonymous sources chat. Like, I'm tired of these damn anonymous sources. He's like anonymous executive, anonymous source, Colin Coward, Bobby Marks, Stephen A. Smith. Anonymous sources is saying anything. I think y'all are the sources. And if not, y'all shouldn't even say it if it's something that's this ridiculous. But we got to stop. Like, at one point, this is a part of the reason why I started streaming in the first place, because they use anonymous sources to hide behind how they actually feel, or to hide behind things that could be controversial, or to hide behind things that are examples of bigotry. So this is an example of one, but this is not the first time. Stephen A. Smith said the same thing a couple years ago. He was like, "It's not me. This is our anonymous source." And Bobby Marks said the same. "It's not me. It's my anonymous source." Colin Coward said the same thing. "It's not me. It's my anonymous source." But they don't see how much damage that can do. And now I got to answer questions to, like, my character and being attacked. This is my life. Keep it basketball. Nobody has a problem. People think I have a problem with people critiquing my performance. Critique my performance all you want. But the line gets crossed. And then they want to act like the line doesn't get crossed.
Let's hear from Brad Stevens.
Rematching rules, but you talk about how you can't have 70% of the salary cap tied up into these two players.
Still do.
You still do.
That's right.
So
Good follow-up.
what's next
Yeah.
after this?
I think the biggest thing is that it's that plus the picks, plus the optionality moving forward. Paul's contract is shorter. He'll have his choice with his player option next year. But I think that, and again, I keep going back to, like, myself as a kid. Like, I don't want to hear about picks and optionality. I don't. unfortunately, in my position, that matters. So that's where we are. Can I tell you exactly what's going to happen? No. We're excited about Paul. We're excited about a lot of our young guys.
All right, that's Brad Stevens, and that's Jaylen Brown. Basketball motivated or bigger than basketball? Lee, the mic is yours.
Yeah, a lot of things to unpack. First of all, I want to start by talking about anonymous sources, Leel. And Jaylen was talking about anonymous sources and things of that nature. Look, this country was founded and really kept our democracy alive by anonymous sources, right? By anonymous sources, people tipping people off, people basically saying this is Watergate is a big example. If it wasn't an anonymous source, Nixon would have got away with Watergate. So I want to say there is a place for anonymous sources when you're trying to fact find and find the truth. I'll throw that out there. I'm a believer in that, as someone who loves poli-science. Now, in this case, though, I don't think that for what they were saying, that's an opinion. That's just a simple opinion. He's the 7th best player on the Celtics team. That's an opinion, which you sprinkle in certain analytical facts, but you don't put others in there so that you can make your point. So to Jaylen's point, yeah, that could have been just their opinion, right? Because it has no really factual base. What we see is that he is a second-team All-NBA. He was Finals MVP. He's an NBA champion. That's what we see. He's an all-defensive team. That's what we see. So our eyes will never deceive us. So it really has nothing to do with his play. When we talk about you signed both of them to these contracts there. Now, this ownership didn't, so we have to give this owner some grace because he didn't sign Tatum and Brown to these contracts, right? However, you've been in the finals, what, 3 times? Under this regime, you won it once. Look at your winning percentage. And you mean to tell me you couldn't tweak the Celtics, mainly, as I've been saying on this show quite a bit, Leel, change the way you play offensive basketball to accentuate what you have, a mid-range sniper in Brown. Tatum goes a little bit further out. So you couldn't change Mazzulla. You couldn't change what you do and keep these guys. So I think it has to do with a lot of other things, that people really don't want to legitimately talk about. But I think Jaylen is right. And in the comment, he thinks he's the smartest person in the room, and it's a disease. I mean, a disease is a condition that eats your body alive, Leel, and it can be spread to other people. What does that mean, right? A disease. Is he a disease that his way of thinking could be spread to other NBA players? And there may be some type of revolt or some issue in the collective bargaining that they want to focus on. This is what I hear, right? Because there's nothing that my eyes tell me that this man is top 10 player in the league. He showed it last year, averaged almost 29 points a game. And so nothing tells me on the basketball court this trade should have been made. Giannis is one thing, right? Giannis, you want to change what you do. You get a big man. He's a 2-time MVP. That's different. That's different, right? I still say they could have won with Tatum even without Giannis, but that's different. But there's other stuff, and to move him for such little in return, as he said, look, you're still paying 2 people damn near 70% of the salary cap. So where did you win there, Leel? Where did you win? And then 2 firsts and 2 seconds. Well, the draft is going to be totally different in 2 years, right? So I don't understand where Brad Stevens thinks he won at all, right? And ownership said it. This wasn't a money thing. So it leads me to believe it's more than money. And they want to say it's play on the court analytically, but our eyes do not deceive us. And so I think it's more than basketball. I think it borderlines on other things, and that's where we stand.
All right, look, I do believe that the Jaylen Brown trade itself was a analytically driven move, but I do think the narratives being sprinkled in it is bigger than basketball. Now I'm gonna make sure I'm clear with that statement. If you look at Jaylen Brown as a basketball player. He's an elite player. He helped the Celtics win the championship, obviously, was the finals MVP. Tatum shot poorly from the field in that whole entire series. He helped powered the Celtics to 56 wins last season, a season which Tatum was out. He had his best season. He dished in. And the way how we view, right, the way, and you talk about eyes deceiving, the way how I view Jaylen Brown, the way how most people view Jaylen Brown is different from the way how the Celtics view Jaylen Brown. The Celtics view Jaylen Brown as overrated. The Celtics view Jaylen Brown as a analytically inefficient player, and the Celtics
overrated how, Leel, and analytically deficient how?
Clearly, they had him in Kevin Durant rumors. They had him in Giannis rumors. They had him in Anthony Davis rumors. So clearly, where he performed in last year, as far as the pecking order, he was a top 5 MVP candidate. From where the ownership and Brad Stevens believe in him is clearly two different stratospheres. Because if you turn in an MVP caliber season, I don't need to do a Giannis trade. I don't. Like Giannis, when was the last time Giannis had an MVP season? When was the last time Giannis was healthy? If he turned in an MVP caliber season, then guess what? I don't need to do the Giannis trade, especially when Giannis is older than him.
You may have to change the way you play basketball, though, Leo. And to me, the Celtics are trying to say we lived and died by the 3, and because we died in the series against Philly, it's
well, you gotta
Jaylen
look
Brown
at also too. And look, I'm like I said, I'm a Brown defender. Brown is my guy, and I'm gonna defend him in a minute here. But I just want to give perspective because a lot of people think when you talk sports, it's right and wrong. It's either you on this side or you on that side. Two things can't be true at the same time. Now, and look, we don't force debates here. We don't say, "Oh, yo, Lee, before the show, yo, you're gonna take that side. I'm gonna take this side." Everything we do is real, and the real thing here is that two things could be true at the same time. There could be media slander when it comes to Jaylen Brown. There is, but there can be a basketball perspective of why the Celtics traded him, and I do believe that both are the case because you think about the Celtics. Yeah, sure, we can tell them to change their ways and whatnot, but the league is going in that direction anyway. The league want more guys that can space the floor as opposed to being ball dominant. For example, take a guy like DeMar DeRozan. How long has this guy, very good player, but how long has this guy been in the league to not develop a consistent three-point shot? Okay, so at the end of the day, that's where the league is going. The league is an analytically driven league now, and a lot of organizations are going in that direction. Brown is not.
Can I ask you a follow-up question?
Go ahead.
Are the Celtics today a better basketball team as constituted today? Hold on.
They're not a better basketball team, Lee.
That's the name of the game, Leo.
But they're not. But I'm telling you the reason why they traded Jaylen Brown. Now, what they got in return is a different question. They clearly lost the deal, but they traded Jaylen Brown because they view Jaylen Brown different than how me and you view Jaylen Brown. They view Jaylen Brown as an overrated player. How? Because they always had him in trade rumors every year. Despite his game, getting better each year and improving, clearly it wasn't enough to move the needle where he can stick.
But Leo, being traded for Kevin Durant and Giannis is not a bad thing. This is not something that he should get all up. They're better players. At the time he was going to trade for Durant was a better player than Jaylen Brown.
I agree with that.
Now, the jury's still out on Giannis, but Giannis is a 2-time MVP. So I get that. They're not a better team, though, Lil. That's the thing that bothers me when we talk about analytics. You use analytics to project how to be better. They're not a better team. I'm sorry, they're not a better team.
They're not a better team. I'm just saying that they believe that they were better without Jaylen Brown. Obviously, there's a financial aspect to it. Yeah, clearly they paid Jaylen Brown. They just won a championship right after they paid Jaylen Brown. So it's important to know that although you can say, like, okay, how is it a problem now when you paid him a couple years ago? That's because they won a championship. Everybody's happy when you're winning a championship. Clearly, he won the finals MVP. He deserved the largest contract at that time, especially with the market going up. But now, after you get bounced in the first round, you have two players making a certain type of money. And look, I agree with Ray Blackwell in the comments that they traded the wrong guy personally, but that's a can of worms that we don't have to open. Again, you're not going to allocate half of your salary cap to two players after just getting bounced in the first round of the playoffs. It's not
still doing it though. Still doing it and doing it with a lesser player and Paul George.
Paul George is at the back end. So
Paul George has 2 years left.
He's at the back end of that
Brown
contract.
has 3.
So clearly they only need Paul George for 1 year because he can opt in and they could trade Paul George, attach him to the picks that they got to get another good player for Tatum. So maybe they're playing the longer game here. But with that being said, you do gotta look at Brown as a player. One of the best players in the world. Still improving, right? When you look at him defensively, he does a lot, he gives you a lot of space. So it's easy to chuck threes over him. Defensively, there could be breakdowns as well with him. But to me, he's gotten better in the same token. And to me, I think the 76ers are getting a good player that's arguably a top 12 player. Still got room to grow.
Defender than Jason Tatum. Brown is right today.
But the problem is, Lee, this is the problem. Jaylen Brown is going to be the poster child when it comes to that analytics debate in the NBA and where it's going. He's going to be the poster child whether he knows it or not, because that's exactly how I see this going, or how I see the thought process when it comes to the Celtics. Now, with that being said, Lee, what I do agree with when it comes to your take is that there's media sprinkled in here, right? Again, when you're a player that is smart and intelligent, you're going to get a couple lashes on the way. And that's exactly what Jaylen Brown is getting right now by the media. I do agree that we have flawed media pundits that come up with these fake news. How many times, for a prime example, has Stephen A. been wrong with his sources? If we want to take his sources as a prime example, his sources come from Area 51. It doesn't come from a credible source because he's been wrong thousands of times when it came to his sources. That's number one. Colin Cowherd, he's another, situation in itself. But again, these are sources. Now, when it comes to intelligence, and going back to that comment that executive made when Jaylen Brown was 19, coming out of college in the process of becoming an NBA player, he's too smart for the league. To me, Lee, whether people know it or not, when it comes to entertainment, whether that be sports, whether that be movies, whether that be hip hop, people in those places are generally not smart. Why? Because label executives are not interested in signing smart people. All right. Now, if you want to talk about hip hop for a second, just as a reference, because hip hop and sports go hand in hand, they don't sign artists with 2-parent households. They don't do that. Genuinely. Take a rapper like Jadakiss. He had to literally clap back at critics because they found out that he had a 2-parent household, and he had to show and prove to himself that doesn't make him a huckstable. Okay, right. So again, when you're an athlete, your job is to dribble a basketball. I'm talking about from a perspective of the Roman circus, which it is. Because at the end of the day, Lee, if we really want to get deep, right, this whole world is a scam. We know that, right? And clearly we being played. But the Roman circus is what's being used as a distraction while things go in motion that make our lives harder every single day. So they don't want no athlete that's smart because he's going to challenge the establishment. And Jaylen Brown, according to that executive, was too smart for the league. They're not interested in smart plays. They want somebody stupid, which 80% of the league is. Even Jaylen Brown came out and said that, no offense, it's not a high bar. Yeah, sure, it's not a high bar because at the end of the day, these people's job is to entertain. They don't want them waking them up or having free thoughts on podcasts and whatnot. They want the guy like Tatum that shows up to work, that doesn't say anything, and that's it.
Well, there are a lot of different ways to do it. They used to get on Michael Jordan and said he wasn't as politically active during his playing career. Now he's doing marvelous things for the community in his retirement.
Yeah, I want to play that clip before you proceed. I want to play that clip of
John Thompson.
Of John Thompson.
Absolutely. Let's hear that, and then we can continue.
Anybody in America who's in business wants athletes to be educated if they intend on doing business with that athlete. And the minute that athlete becomes educated, they're somewhat offended by it. Because now an educated athlete doesn't just say, yes, I balls to sit there. He starts to question the system.
They want to be good for nigga master. That's what they want, okay? Toby, be good for nigga master. They want those type of basketball players, right? Remember in the bubble, Lee, and I'm gonna let you get right back in here when they got LeBron James, the gatekeeper, right? The one that they made the face of the NBA to kind of like keep everybody in line and in check. Remember when all the stuff was happening on the outside, and then LeBron James went to Barack Obama, you know, because he was a black person. Obviously, Barack Obama did nothing for black people, but that's neither here or there.
Yeah, please don't go there. Please don't go there.
He still went to Barack Obama, like, yo, what should we do? How should we handle this situation with all the civil unrest going on? And LeBron James wanted to hoop. He wanted to play basketball because at the end of the day, he was chasing a ring. Kyrie Irving was the one that said, you know what? We shouldn't be playing right now. Let's do something. Let's get out of this. Let's get out of the bubble and go and go on the streets and protest and do what we do. They don't like the Kyrie Irving process. They don't like action, Lee. They like feelings, right? But they don't like action. They don't like the mind that's going to spark change. They want the, Black Lives Matter movement, you know, but they don't want the, we're going to build businesses. Let's talk about the media. This is how the media is playing the narratives. This is how it's affecting the way how you think. They don't like that type of smart person, just like my guy was alluding to. Lead the mic.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, but look, there's more than one way, and let me say this: there's more than one way. I don't know what I know. Jason Tatum does a lot for youth. Quietly, he's not as outspoken. As far as athletes being stupid, I don't think athletes are stupid. I think they're less informed, and they need to surround themselves with financial and advisors that are more apt to look out for their well-being. Sometimes they're steered to the same agent that has the coach's agent and other players on the team, and that's where you get messed up instead of going to someone that maybe will focus simply on you, simply on your well-being on your behalf. So I don't know, stupid is the word, less informed, not really financially literate, and they have
AKA stupid. Salute to my guy, Mike.
That is not stupid, Leel. That is not stupid. Stop that. Stop it. That's not stupid.
I'm just. That's literally
that's
what you're
not
describing.
Informed. Okay. You can be not informed and not stupid. So
there's a reason why you're not informed because you're hooping all day.
It's about exposure. It's about exposure. It's about exposure. Nobody's exposing it to them at the high school level, not in the college level. And when they get to the NBA, they turn their business over to other people to manage it. And half of them don't even sign their own checks. So this is how they lose money. This is how they get investments that don't materialize. You get a brother like Jaylen Brown who understands that, who understands the system. And what John Thompson said was very accurate. And people don't like to fool with him. And you know what, Leo? He probably is the smartest person in the room when he goes and, lectures at Harvard, right? Went to Cal Berkeley, could have went to any school in the country, right? I mean, this guy's brilliant. And so he probably is the smartest, but calling it a disease, you have to look at what the word disease means. Calling it a disease, that has a different overtures to it when you call it a disease because of what the word in the dictionary, what a disease means, a condition that's going to spread negatively, right, to the body. And in this case, maybe the body of the NBA. So that's where it is. I don't necessarily agree with stupid. I just uninformed. And the problem is, Leel, you made a very good point. When it gets to the point where that's all you do is focus on ball, that's when you get taken advantage of. And that's when your career ends and you don't have any money.
I mean, look, you know about the athletes, right? That again, they're good athletes, so there's a reason why they make millions of dollars. But a lot of them actually don't set the bar high when it comes to intelligence. Ally Floyd Mayweather. Look what's going on with Floyd Mayweather right now. This guy was a king of boxing. I don't think there's nobody that made more money from boxing than Floyd Money Mayweather. There's a reason why we call him Money Mayweather. And yet, to waste all that money on strip clubs and doing bad deals and whatnot and having all these cars and everything, that's a sign of low intelligence. So again, what Jaylen Brown is saying, and what this guy's saying is that when it comes to athletes, right? You at the end of the day, you're a pawn in the game. They want you to dribble a basketball because they want you to distract people, from what's going on in the type of laws that they pass while we not looking. And so they will not put you on a big stage if you're intelligent. They're not. And if you somehow your talent overcomes that to the part where, you just good at basketball, they're going to give you a hard time. Kyrie Irving was on his way to being blackballed out of the league. It took a desperate team in the Mavericks who wanted to make a superstar happy that couldn't make no trade other than the Kyrie Irving trade for him to still be playing right now. Otherwise, he would have been out of here. So my point about it is, and I'm going to sum this up, is that I do believe that the Celtics made a basketball-driven move because everything that they have done has been following the math, right? From the way how they play basketball, shooting up all those threes, from the way how they literally made changes to the roster last year when they let go KP, when they let go Jrue Holiday, all those plays, they were making financial moves. So it's not like they just hit us with the Jaylen Brown nuke. We saw it coming. We knew it was coming when they went for the Giannis trade and they missed, right? And that's what happened. They missed, and how could you go back to that? I mean, from a business standpoint, it's easy for me to say don't do the trade, but how could you go back to Jaylen Brown and say, you know what? Yeah, we effed up.
Well, you could do that. I mean,
that's where Tatum to me got to come out of the woodwork and say something.
What did Jaylen Brown say? He said, I didn't request a trade. I didn't want to trade. They never. So you could have went back to Jaylen Brown and smooth this over. Fact of the matter is they did not want him. However, Leel, again, you keep saying they can't go back to it. They won 59 games. They were number 2 in the East. Tatum and Brown played a total of 13 games together, of which both of them was injured in multiple parts of those games that they played on the 13. So they never even really played together. Hence, Tatum was hurt in game 7. So you can't tell me that Tatum coming off of Achilles, they won 59 games, right? And you couldn't tweak the team in other areas and your coaching, and you couldn't have ran it back with Tatum and Brown. Of course you could. However, you didn't. The question I'll ask again, because are you better today, Boston Celtics, with Brown gone and the trade assets that you got? Are you better today than you were when you had Brown? And if that answer is no, then that tells me all I need to know right there. Because it couldn't have been a basketball decision, Leel, not strictly basketball, because if you're not better, teams typically don't try to get worse. They try to get better.
I mean, to be fair, we saw Luka Doncic trade last year, but neither here or there. What I want to say is I do want to respond to a report, right? And again, I don't want people to think that I'm tiptoeing like Angelina the ballerina here. I think there's two sides of this coin. I do believe that there's a basketball side and there's a political side, but I think the political side is not indicative of the basketball-driven move. I think the political side is just something that's being thrown in there. And on the way out from Jaylen Brown, he's receiving lashes from the media. That's a whole different ball game. I do believe that a lot of it is media. I do believe that not all the media is lying here either. I do believe that the executives probably feel what they feel, because at the end of the day, the last thing they want to care about is what Jaylen Brown thinks. You think these executives care what Jaylen Brown has to say on a podcast? Do you think they care that he's going to come and talk about what I want to do for Boston and building Black Wall Street? No, they don't care. Actually, they do care. They like, yo, who's this guy I think he is? Right? Because at the end of the day, we want people that's going to go to work. That's the unfortunate part of it. But there's an executive that said that they were baffled that Walker Kessler went for more than Jaylen Brown. I want to talk about that because I think it's also fair to put perspective into it. Because, Lee, I said this on this show before that we did, before he got traded, that once they whiffed on the Giannis trade, we were going to come back and look at that trade once it did happen and say, you know what? That's all Boston got for Jaylen Brown. It was evident. They had no leverage anymore. The whole league saw The whole league saw that they whiffed on the Giannis trade, and they knew that they were going to panic and be desperate enough to trade him for nuts on a Manhattan stand in Manhattan. All right, $2 nuts. Pause. All right, it's $2 nuts. Pause. All right. So my thing here is when you compare the Jaylen Brown trade to the Kessler trade, and I know a lot of people thought that the Lakers overpaid for Kessler.
They did.
But there's a price, there's a need. We have to talk about positional value. They clearly had a need for a big. Clearly, they were willing to do whatever it took to get a big playing alongside Luka Doncic. And if that include paying premium price and overpriced, they were going to do so. It's almost like the Rudy Gobert trade. Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell both got traded. And one could argue Donovan Mitchell is clearly a better player than Rudy Gobert, but Rudy Gobert is arguably a more important player than Donovan Mitchell. And we saw the importance go for more. He went for 5 first-round picks. Donovan Mitchell went for, a couple picks, a couple plays. But overall, the depth of the deal, Rudy Gobert was a better package, not because he was a better player, but because he offered more value. And I'm not saying that Jaylen Brown don't offer value. But what I am saying is that Kessler offered more value to the Lakers as far as what they needed from a positional value standpoint. Jaylen Brown clearly is a better player than Walker Kessler. And if anybody told you otherwise, stop listening to sports from them.
No, you good. You're good. Hey, again, when somebody answer my question and we ain't got to talk about it anymore, then I'll say that. And the whole thing I got from Brad Stevens' press conference was that the owner has given him a little leeway, right? The owner has given him a little rope, right? So they're not going to jump on him when the Celtics come in subpar this year. They're together, but come in 2 years in a row, then they might have some new management in Boston. And I'll leave it at that.
And we are going to leave it at that. Let us know what you think about the Jaylen Brown trade. Was it basketball motivated or bigger than basketball? Now we are going to move on and talk about this Brandon Aiyuk situation because Brandon Aiyuk is all over the place. Brandon Aiyuk is wilding, okay, here on social media. Is Brandon Aiyuk worth the risk for the Commanders, and has his outburst derailed his NFL career? Lee, the mic is yours.
Yeah, is he worth it? Look, he's a very good football player. When healthy, dynamic, explosive. Reminds me a lot of a T.O. type explosion. So he's a very, very good football player. Let's get that out of the way now. I don't know who's advising him, Leel. I don't know who's advising him. I don't know who is in his ear, but it's certainly not someone that's advising him properly on how you try to get out of a situation. Now, there's a lot of reports. He came out and said they voided his guarantees last year and took his money and all that. And I get it. And he said he'll never play for them. And I get that. But these outbursts are not serving you well. I think the outbursts are a ploy to get him released sooner than later so he can go to Washington. I don't even think the back and forth between him and Jaden Daniel is actually very real, to be honest with you, Leo. I think that's more banning about their friends off the field, and you just don't turn like that on friends. So I think there's a lot more to that. And I do still think that if and when he's released, I think the Commanders will be at the top of the list of the teams that's looking for him. Now, they'll get him at a much more discounted rate than they would have before because he's doing all this foolish stuff. But he has to understand that you're costing yourself money. Very similar to Ja Morant when he was at the guns and he kept costing himself money by his outbursts and things that he's doing. Same thing with Brandon Aiyuk. These are dollars that you cannot get back. You will not get back. You're costing yourself money. And Lil, Brandon Aiyuk probably has one more stop. This next stop, wherever it goes, and I think it will be the Commanders. If he doesn't make it there, he'll be out the league. Trust me on that.
Yeah, he's not worth the risk. Listen, he's a good football player. Very good. Very talented. That playoff run, the last Super Bowl run that they went on, obviously lost to the Chiefs. Excellent playoffs. the best playoffs of his career,
Yeah, he's
in
a
the
good
best
football
stretch.
player.
Yeah, very good football player. Could run routes. He runs a mean route, and yeah, I mean,
Physical.
he's good.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I wouldn't touch Brandon Aiyuk because I wouldn't want him going rogue in the middle of a game like Antonio Brown did against the Jets a couple years ago.
He has no history of that, Leel. He has no
And
history of
he
that.
didn't have no
He has no
history of that
history of
either
that.
in the daggone game. Nobody had history of going rogue in the middle of a game until Antonio Brown
Antonio was
decided that
acting
he
a
was going to
fool.
do something. Now, Lee, what I would say is
Antonio
that
was
you look
acting
at
crazy,
the
but
you look at the Commanders. They clearly have a need for wide receiver. We know that, and we know that they got to keep up in the NFC East. I think the NFC East got better. I think the Giants got better. I think the Cowboys got better. The Eagles probably have gotten a little bit worse after the A.J. Brown deal, but I wouldn't completely rule them out either. They don't have a lot of wide receiver depth, right? Clearly, we know that. So outside of Terry McLaurin, they don't have wide receiver depth. Now, they cannot be an idiot here and see one good catch that Traylon Burks made on Sunday Night Football against the Broncos and think he's all of a sudden a number 2 because of one
he's
good
been hurt.
one-handed catch.
He's been hurt the majority of his career, Leel.
Yes, and I liked him coming out of college, but that was a long time ago. Clearly, you know, when he came from Arkansas, I liked him. Clearly, can't stay on the field. So we can't get foolish there as well. They need another wide receiver. And I do think that's where Stephon Diggs come into play. Because although he can't keep his hands off women, all right, I'd rather deal with him. I think he's still got a lot left in the tank. To me, Brandon Aiyuk has lost his mind completely. I wouldn't even touch that. I think you would be an idiot to even touch that, even if it was for cheap, because you just can't count on this dude. This dude is spiraling out of control, and everybody is seeing it play out. Possibly, I would even trade for Brian Thomas Jr. from the Jaguars. You know, I would do something, not Brandon Aiyuk. And I understand that Brandon Aiyuk and Jaden Daniels are friends. They played 1 year together at Arizona State. And sure, you would like to mix the former college teammates in the pros because that has been proven to be effective with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Waddle and Tua. And sure, you want to duplicate that as well. But right now, this guy is not here. I mean, look at this guy's eyes. You know, you can even tell from this picture before he went rogue that there's something wrong with this guy. And obviously, clearly there is. So, Lee, I'll pass the mic over to you.
Well, again, he fired his agent because he felt that his agent was sort of working in conjunction with the 49ers, and his agent was reaching out to his girl, trying to get him to report back. So, look, let me say this again. He's being advised. Wrong, and he's doing some things that is costing him dearly from a financial perspective. But Leel, don't get it twisted. Whoever gets him, you may get a career year out of him from a skill and a performance perspective. Now, you low payment, low money invested in him, low risk. You can always cut it. That's why I say he's costing himself money, and the team's going to get him on a very team-friendly contract. See, he wants to get out of San Francisco so bad that he's cost himself all of his leverage power as far as negotiating a contract if and when he's released. So whoever gets him is going to be very friendly, but he's a talent.
Signed the contract. If he knew that he didn't want to play in San Fran, he shouldn't have signed the contract. He said no to New England when the 49ers had a New England deal agreed to verbally. He nixed that trade. Obviously, we saw how New England, and I get it, no wide receiver wanted to go there at that time. Clearly, Stephon Diggs was the wide receiver that went there, and look, they made a Super Bowl. He nixed that deal. So at the end of the day, if you don't want to be on the 49ers and don't sign the contract, that's the problem I have with a lot of the modern athletes. They go after the money, and then they want to act up. And this happens more in the NBA than it does in the NFL, right? You normally see guys right after they get paid, oh, let me request a trade. They do that all the time in the NBA. And right now, Aiyuk did that same thing, pulled that same stunt, thinking that the NFL is this player empowerment like the NBA is, and it's not. It's not. There's checks and balances in the NFL. That's why the sport is so good. So he could have pulled that same stunt that these other superstars do. They get the contract, and then they request a trade right after that. He can't pull that in the NFL. And he tried to, and it failed. And right now, he's making himself look like an idiot right now. And that's the problem.
No, we're in agreement. We're in agreement with that. Just doing some foolish things that's really hurting him. Again, I say it's hurting him. But the question is is he worth it? Look, there are a lot of clowns in NFL locker rooms, Leo.
But
there are a lot of
that's the aspect
that
of
are
it.
playing
Is the baggage
on
worth
Sundays, right? So it's not like he's an anomaly that's going to a team that he's the only one. He's talented. He has a friendship with Jayden Daniels, and I think once released, the team will get a friendly deal, and you're going to get the best Brandon Aiyuk. So this may be the best time, in my opinion, to sign him of all the times you may get him, because he doesn't have any leverage by the way he's acting, and so that's going to hurt him. But he's a performer. He'll be a motivated performer, and I think the sky's the limit, especially if he goes to the Commanders. I don't want him to go to the Commanders, but if he goes there, I think he and Jayden Daniels will be a very, very serious combination.
Nah, give me a serious football player. How about that? You see, Lee, the problem is a lot of people want to diagnose things, right? That's what a lot of people want to do. Oh, CTE. Anytime somebody start acting up, CTE, it must be CTE. But, obviously, that's a real thing in the NFL. We know that. Clearly, there's another player that obviously, unfortunately, was found to have that and committed suicide today. There was a report that dropped about that. So that's a real thing. But not everything is CTE. Not everything is CTE, bro. We did the same thing with Antonio Brown. All right, we got into that conspiracy theory mode. Oh, yeah, you remember that hit with Vontaze Burfict? And he knocked him out. That's where he developed CTE at. No. Guys been getting killed. Guys been getting decked on the football field for years, for decades, and never acted like this type of athletes that we are witnessing today. All right, guys were getting clocked out of games. You remember that Anquan Bolden hit against the Jets? I thought my guy's soul left. I saw his soul leave his body, but they never got on this type of behavior. This is the new modern athlete. That's why you're getting Ja Morant's. That's why you're getting Antonio Brown's. What, Ja Morant got CTE too? He don't even play football. How does he got CTE? He doesn't. He's just an idiot. He's a guy that want to be down with the crowd. He's a guy that want to take the phone and everywhere he go and post. That's what Brandon Aiyuk is doing. Take his phone away. All right, that's the problem, Lee. It's not about CTE. Miss me with this mental health garbage. You know who has mental health issues?
Stop it, Leo. Stop it.
You know who has mental health issues? Somebody that don't know where his next meal is coming from. Somebody that got to work 60 hours a week, 60 hours a week, because guess what? He broke. That's the real mental health. Not, you getting millions of dollars to play football. You just got paid a couple years ago. Miss me with the mental health. He needs mental help. Okay, now he doesn't have nothing with mental health. He needs mental help. He's psycho, just like the rest of these athletes right now.
Money doesn't make you any more smarter, more emotionally stable, Leo. None of it. It does none of that. All it does is add to the instability. I'm trying to help you. It adds to the instability. Yeah, it
does. I agree with you.
That's what's going on here. Very immature. And look, Leo, throughout the history of especially the modern football, receivers have always been divas. Always.
There's a difference between divas.
You talk about T.O., you talk about Chris Carter, you talk about Randy Moss. They're all divas. They're all divas because they're dependent on somebody else for their livelihood, right? And so, emotionally, emotionally, he's struggling, and that's going to hurt him. But Leo, let's give him a little grace.
Purdy got him a nice contract.
Mental health is an issue, and I think there is some things going on there. I don't know if it's CTE. I just think he needs to sit on somebody's couch and talk it out.
Brock Purdy got this dude a new contract. Should be happy, right? Right after he got that contract, he had a terrible season. It was a short sample size, so he only played a couple games, but he had a lot of drops in those couple games, and then obviously went down with the ACL injury. Hasn't played football, and to me, that's just risky right there. I mean, we've seen Calvin Ridley. It's a different situation. because his situation was gambling. But we've seen wide receivers that missed the year. You know, obviously, we don't know if he's healthy. We don't know if he's healthy in the mind. There's so many questions with Brandon Aiyuk. To me, as much as I would like to see him with Jaden Daniels, I don't think it's worth the risk. If I was a owner, I'm not touching that. There's other receivers. There's Stephon Diggs that can give you similar production for less headache.
I think whatever he does with women, both of them. I think you get about the same on both of them. I think in a different way, they're sort of mirror images. You get a lot of diva in Stephon Diggs as well. Aiyuk, a little more social, emotionally unstable, but you get the same thing with Diggs in a different route. I think the Commanders are going to get Aiyuk, and I said it here first. I think that's going to happen. And you know, I'll put it this way: I'm not scared of anything because I think the Cowboys have set themselves up to be very successful, but that will be a problem. I think he's that good.
All right, we are going to move on, and we're going to leave Brandon Aiyuk alone. And look, I hope this guy get his act together. I hope so he can play football. Because the one thing I hate to see is talent going to race. Like, I hate when talent go to waste. Like, I want to see talent on the football field. So we'll see how. Right now, he's still a member of the 49ers. We'll see how that ends. We'll see how his future plays out. But anyway, we are going to move on here. And I want to talk about Alicia Keys. I got the keys. I got the keys. I see my guy Lee bopping. Yes, sir. We got the keys here. Now, we're going to talk about Alicia Keys, and she made some comments that I want to play. I'm going to get the video, and we're going to run the video, and then we're going to talk about it, give our perspective on what she had to say, what she said on the 4th of July. So let's run the clip of Alicia Keys, if we can find it. It's coming up. Lee, I'm going to let you give a reaction because I got to get the video. So I'm going to work on the video, and then I'm going to pick it up from there. So go ahead, Lee. Your initial thoughts on Alicia Keys' comments.
Look, Alicia Keys, she said it well. I think women's equal rights has, always been at the forefront, going back to when Serena Williams started in tennis and was worked so hard to get the purses for the women's on the tennis tour equal to the men. So I think there's always been that fight for equal rights in sports, going back to the 50s and the 60s for women. So I agree with her. I think that push is still more work to be done. You saw the WNBA just now get contracts that is equal to their talent, right? They just now got contracts that you would say, okay, a professional basketball player should be making this type of money. Whereas at one point, their salaries was like 1/20th of what the NBA players was making. So it's always about equality, women doing the same thing. I believe in Title IX. And I just think that when you look at these major sports now and how all of this additional training for male and females that is going on and how women, female athletes are developing, their sports are just as good and they deserve equal rights when it comes to, of course, Title IX issues, but in pay and in how they negotiate and in endorsement deals. So I'm behind her and her sentiment 100%.
I'm going to play the clip from Alicia Keys now.
100 years since the Equal Rights Amendment was first introduced, and now still women don't have an explicit guarantee to equal rights under the U.S. Constitution. Can you believe that? I couldn't even believe that was real. I mean, women are not asking for special rights, just equal rights. Let's turn outrage into authorship. If it's the 250th celebration of the country, isn't it time to update some things? What rights or guarantees do you feel all women should have in America?
All right, Lee. Let's go. So, responding to Alicia Keys' video. And look, Alicia Keys, hell of a singer. I'm a fan of hers. I believe that unequivocally, she's like very underrated when it comes to her talent.
I think she's very talented.
Very talented, for sure. Now, I think there's something, right? There's something that's I think when you talk about the video, it's another prime example of post-trauma victimhood. Now, I think that's more of a race thing than a gender thing, but obviously there's a gender thing as well. Because I do believe because of slavery, us African Americans as a whole, we have a trauma that we deal with, which is post-slavery trauma. And I think when you talk about women, there was once upon a time in society where they had less rights than men, couldn't vote, and are dealing, we're dealing with the unequal rights trauma. But this is where I differ a little bit with a lot of people. All those things are understandable. But at some point, victimhood does more harm than good. Because when you look at statistics, the math don't be mathing. When we talk about slavery and how slavery set us back 100 years as a people, we don't talk about the things that we do in our own communities. The first a cop that shoots a black kid, mind you, Lee, millions of people that live in America, millions of situations that can happen in a day. We take that one situation out of so many things happening in the world, crime, robberies, this, that, and the third, melees, whatever. And we highlight that as a way to come together when we should be coming together when it comes to what we do on our own. How do we come together as a people? What changes that we make? How about we don't kill our own kind? Because there's truth that could be said. And I know I experienced this myself. Obviously living in the hood, growing up in the hood, that this narrative of we supposed to be scared of white people. Sometimes you walk in your own neighborhood and you scared of your own kind, bro, because it could be a gang of people that's sitting on the steps up to no good, looking to rob, kill, and destroy. And you sense that energy, and it has no race label to it. So when it comes to victimhood, we got to get out of the mentality that there's somebody trying to kill us, because yeah, sure, there is somebody trying to kill us, but it's not the people who you think. The people that's trying to kill us is the people that want us divided. That's the people that's trying to kill us. The people that you don't know nothing about. The people that you don't see.
How does that
right? Not the cop that you see in that car. Maybe he want to F up your day, depending on who he is. Not all cops. Well, maybe there's a one cop that, is on that type of time and that want to rough you up. But the people that actually is plotting on your downfall as a people, or the people that you don't see, right? The people that wear suits and ties that you don't see, that you don't even know exists.
I can get with that, but how does that affect them as far as equal rights, Leel? You're talking about.
I want to get perspective as we dive into that, because when you talk about equal rights, I don't understand what Alicia Keys is seeing about the modern day that gives her the autonomy to want to come and speak about it. Because literally, when you look at women, they dominate many industries today, including media. We can start off with media, which happens to be obviously a lucrative industry. You turn on ESPN, all you see is a lot of women analysts. Many who I believe, based on when I hear them talk, don't really know the game, but they obviously, a lot of them look good. I'll give them that. Becky with the blonde hair.
I don't think there's more women analysts on TV than men, Leel. I don't think
there may not be more women analysts than men, but you turn on ESPN, I'm pretty sure you turn on it right now, you're going to see one. Now, obviously, remember what happened with LeVar Ball. LeVar Ball went on ESPN. He flirted with Molly Karam. That's the reason why he's banned from ESPN, because he flirted with her. Oh, you can ask me anything, Molly. So, all right, fine, Lee. I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying that's right. But at the end of the day, she was protected. So you look at statistics, and Lee, you're a big stat guy. That's why I came prepared today with stats. In 2023, 46% of all managers in the U.S. were women, up from 29% in 1980. So clearly there's progress there.
Okay,
right?
Should be progress.
Now, more women are employed in the U.S. today than men. Did you know that? The federal data highlighted in a report by Indeed says that.
There's a lot of men that are incarcerated at a higher rate than women. I can get with that too.
And maybe crack has something to do with it, Lee.
That could be it too.
Maybe crack has something to do with it. Maybe there was a couple knuckleheads that saw the crack on the street and said, you know what? I want to feed my family before I lose my family. All right, that's a bar right there.
Relate back to women's rights, and especially in sports, Leel, because historically, women have been paid less than men. You look.
Well,
You
guess
got
what? Historically, their sports haven't been supported as far as getting viewership than men. Now, look at the WNBA, and I'm glad you're bringing up women's sports because take the WNBA for a prime example. They were about to go bankrupt. At one point, they was irrelevant at one point,
Well,
right? And guess
yeah.
who came in and stepped in to help the WNBA? The NBA.
Yeah,
the NBA came and stepped in to help the WNBA survive. And now they get Caitlin Clark, who brings more revenue, more eyes to the sport, and they can't even support her. They want to beef with her.
Well,
which is another can of worms.
They still, with Caitlin Clark the last 2 years, they still lost $40 million on average. This is the losing of the money in the WNBA has more to do with how the operations of the league is intertwined with the NBA and NBA stadiums and who gets paid first and how it trickled down to the players and all of that loss of money. But they were averaging, Leel, $78,000, $79,000, $80,000 average salaries. I don't care what it is. It's a professional basketball league. They should have been making more money.
Your viewers have to, obviously the more money your sport generates, the more that you get.
They did that with viewership, though. They did that with over 200,000, 300,000 people increase over that. So that tells you that it had more to do more than just viewership, because they increased the viewership, but they still lost $40 or $50 million last year. So equal rights, tennis, for an example, until Serena Williams got there, those tennis players were paid less. So when I'm talking about equal rights, Leel, I'm talking about when you analyze women's sport, they have to be paid in conjunction with
there has to be a demand for your product. There has to be a demand to see you in order for you to get that type of contract. Now, you look at I talked about the NBA, right? Now, this is bigger than just sports. Obviously, sports is what we do. Obviously, we get more political. Sports is just one avenue. You look at Alicia Keys, she's worth $150 million, right? Now, I believe that there's sponsors out there that get into these celebrities' ear and tell them what to say. I do believe that's a real thing. Wow. I do believe so. Now, could that be the case here? Possibly, maybe not. Maybe that's a free thinking opinion.
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate because I don't know that. That's
I would say this.
So I wouldn't do that, but go ahead.
When you get deeper into the rabbit hole, Lee, the government protects women when it comes to many things. Let's just call a spade, Lee. Can we just be honest for 5 minutes here? Because when you talk about child support, when you talk about marriage, the business ethics of marriage, that's more catered to women. So at the end of the day, everybody has their pros and their cons and their strengths and their weaknesses. Obviously, men, we have things that give us an advantage over women, especially when it comes to, like you said, obviously there's more demand for the NBA than it is the WNBA. So guess what? The people in the NBA get paid more, clearly, than the WNBA. So yeah, that's a fair argument to be made, even though the NBA supports the WNBA. Even though guys like Steph Curry supports the WNBA, even though guys like Jaylen Brown supports the WNBA, they still get support. So it's not like, yo, we turn a blind eye to it. They're still being supported. The NBA came and saved the sport and made it more profitable. It helped.
I don't know if that's the case because it hasn't been.
They invested into it. They invested millions of dollars.
Yeah, but it hadn't been profitable. It hadn't been. Matter of fact, for the last decade, it hadn't been profitable. So it wasn't. It didn't save it. They weren't making money. And like I said, we talk about Caitlin Clark. The last 2 years before this new CBA, they weren't making any money. They were losing $40 to $50 million. So that's not actually true. How the image? Like, I'm gonna give you one example. The Fever, Caitlin Clark's team, they play in the Pacers Stadium. Well, they have to pay, and it's owned by the same. They have to pay a fee for that, and the money comes. All this stuff comes off the top. They use the same concession stand people. They have to pay two different. All of that. When you look at the finances and the expenses of the league, that's some of the reasons why they're losing money. Tennis, and the last thing I'll say, I like women's tennis better than the men's tennis.
I mean, that's fair. Ever since
and they were still making less money, Leo. So it's not a men difference over women.
Well, how much
in tennis?
What does the numbers say?
Women's game is far
What
better.
do the numbers say as far as viewership when it comes to tennis matches? Obviously, Serena Williams is a whole different can of worms.
Well,
She's
absolutely.
obviously
Serena's been there for years, and that's why she changed.
She's going to bring in ratings.
Absolutely.
But as a whole,
the women's game is far better. The women's game is far better in tennis. It's far better. But they were making less. I still make less. But that's what I'm talking about. So I just think Title IX is a great thing in sports. I ain't gonna speculate in how people use their vehicle, their speech and whatnot. But
I'm just saying, Lee, this pandering stuff to me it just doesn't make sense. The numbers doesn't support that. Now, sports is one thing. The real world is another thing. Because let's operate here. Let's be real here. As much as we love the game, as much as we like to talk about sports, and we do what we do now, we love it. That's fake, right? That's the Roman circus right here. We talk about the real world that exists, right? The real world, right? It's a totally different ball game. And women are now today outnumbering men when it comes to salaries. A lot of relationships are ending because women are making more money than the guy. So we have to be clear about that.
Look.
That is true. That's happening.
You got to be more mentally and emotionally stable. Just because your wife make more money, that means.
Well, it's not only the guy. There's some women that wouldn't date a guy that makes less than them, and that's fair.
Yeah,
that's
so
their preference. That's a combination of both.
But Leel, you have to understand there are more women in college than men. There are more women coming out with advanced degrees than men. So
that's true.
Lot goes into that than saying that they are being catered to. I don't agree with that. I just think that there are more women, and you said it's still men are higher for it went up from 29 to 46%. I just think that women should be paid on equal par. And if they're the CEO and they've earned it, it's very similar to our DEI conversation. If they've earned it and they're going to college and they're getting advanced degrees,
whether they go in the difference is that's not even the point. Yes, sure, we know women go to college more than men do, but the point is that they have the autonomy to do so. Her part and her point is that equal rights doesn't exist anymore. We need to do better. They are doing better. The numbers are
agree with that. I agree with
they
that.
are doing better.
I do think they're
so
doing
what are we
better.
complaining for? Because again, this is bigger than just sports, Lee. This is bigger than just sports. This is social, right? I mean, listen, how many babies, and look, I am going to get political here. How many babies are aborted a year? I mean, you do what you want. You do what you want. It's like a sport. You do what you want. Nobody leaves you alone, right? Everybody leaves you alone. You talk about
you don't. I'll say this
when it comes to before, right? Let's get deep here. Before, back in the day, right? A woman had to carry herself a certain type of way back in the day, right? She couldn't go out there and sleep with Tom, Dick, and Harry, right? She had to carry herself with a level of class. Otherwise, she was going to get made fun of. Otherwise, she was going to get singled out. There's places where you go with a certain type of behavior and you get stoned, right? Today in America, women can sleep with whoever, and they can frame that as empowerment. Times has changed. They do what they want. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad.
You're leaving out a whole different genre. While you say women can do that, men are not stepping up to their place in the household and their place to society. That's a two-headed coin there. You just can't say women and say what women are doing and without the male taking his proper place and role in the family. Now you can't do that.
I know we're speaking from a general perspective, right? I know we're speaking from a general perspective. Obviously, there's good men, there's good women. There's women that do what they're supposed to do. There are throwback relationships and households that exists, right? Not a lot as compared to how it used to be before. Clearly, there's a societal change, right? That's one thing. Now, in general, to me, based off what I see, based off what I hear, based off what I interact with, guys, for the most part, and I'm not talking about the idiots. I'm not talking about the ones in jail. I'm not talking about the ones that selling drugs and scamming. I'm talking about the average guy that goes to work and provide for their family. Most guys, their roles generally have remained the same. Two key words here: provide and protect. That has never changed. Now, obviously, there's idiots out there. We're not talking about them. Their roles have remained the same. But when you talk about the gender role of a woman, that definition has shifted, whether we like it or not. Before it was cook, clean, maintain the house, and that's how you do it. At one point, they couldn't even have their own religion. They had to have the same religion as a man. They had to vote for who the man voted for. They couldn't even have their own right to vote.
Okay, but
now that has changed, and their roles have changed significantly. A lot of women these days, and I'm not talking about the good ones. I'm not talking about the queens. I'm not talking about the ones that need to be wifed up. I'm talking about the other ones that's out here shaking ass all day on social media. They don't know how to cook and clean, and they want you to still do the two words as a man: provide and protect. To me, my point in that is that these days a lot of women have freedom. They have the freedom of choice.
Yeah, they should have, and they should have freedom of choice, Leel. But that again, you're making general statements. I mean, we can make general statements about anything, right? I mean, we're making general statements about that. I think women have gained some rights, which they should have, right? They're human, just like, you know, when you talk about, you know, African American and Caucasian people, they have rights, and they should have those rights.
And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have rights. What I'm saying is that the society that we live in today is uncomparable to where it was before, which is why I don't understand Alicia Keys' comments. What more does she want to see? Right? How about we be specific here instead of being broad? Because yeah, you call me being broad, she's being broad too. Because clearly there are examples of things improving when it comes to women significantly, rather to the point.
Of course, things have improved. I don't think she's saying that, nor am I. But I think there's still ways to go in women's rights in the country and in the world. I think that's been statistically proven with some of the human rights violations that go on. So I do think, and she didn't go into specifics. You know, maybe she had done that. It was a small snippet, but I do think that there are things that still can improve.
And she did it on the 4th of July, number one. And I understand that the 4th of July is controversial for a lot of people, and that's fair enough. I respect it. But it's like, my thing here is, right? And look, I'm not the biggest fan of America in general. I think America is a scam. And to be honest with you, Lee, me leaving America before seemed like a long shot is more of a possibility, right? So that's just to give you context of what I'm about to say right now. But with that being said, as much as, you know, we can criticize what we don't like about America, we are still living in America. Yeah. How about we show respect to where we are living in right now for the time that we are here? Because at the end of the day, Alicia Keys, you're worth $150 million. You get to provide for your family. Clearly, you're dating another provider in Swiss Beats and whatnot. You were able to create the American dream here. And whereas maybe other countries, maybe you couldn't have. So how about we be thankful for progress? How about we acknowledge how far we have come? Because clearly we came far. Now, doesn't mean we came at the end of the road and everything is wee and everybody's together. No, it's not. We have a long way to go, right? But what we are doing here, what the narrative is, and what people need to understand is that there are people behind the scenes that want this. They want to separate man and woman. That's why they separated your household. Women's liberation, although seemed as a good thing, and from a woman perspective, is a lovely thing. But it changed the way the family structure dynamics are. And to be honest with you, that's not how you build legacy. That's not how you build communities, right? No. We getting deep here. That's not.
Yeah, but Leel, let me say this. We could use that same analogy and that same argument when we talk about African Americans in this country, when we talk about other minorities. We should leave well enough alone. It was well enough back then. They've made strides, but that's enough. I don't think you generalize things like that. I don't think you leave things like that. I think everybody should continue to
I think we need to stop worrying about inclusion. That's what I think when it comes to the African American subject. I think it's more of like, all right, how about we stop talking about inclusion and how about we do our own thing? That to me is how I look at American situation in politics and Black Americans politics. It's like, okay, how about we support new business instead of going to Walmart and shopping at Walmart, who is funded by these big corporations? And how about instead of you supporting ESPN, which is funded by these big corporations, this conglomerate that controls all the media. And how about you support Leel podcast? How about you support Lee podcast? How about you support the mom and pop shop? That's how you build wealth.
People are going to support what they believe in, Leel, and how you.
So if you don't believe in your own, then you don't believe.
Well, yeah, but you know,
problem?
again, you can believe in your own. You cannot believe in your own. People are going to support what they believe in, and you know, when you talk about women's rights, I think there is still a lot of room to grow. And so, yeah, it's been a good conversation. I will say this though, you know, still miles to go. But putting the family unit back together, that's probably the most important thing that we can do in this country. And when we do that, people as whole, black, white, red, green, whatever, this country will be better off when the family unit comes back together. I'll end.
This is my last point. Obviously, you know what I do as far as 9 to 5 is concerned. Now, obviously, you know, I'm in a position where I speak to a lot of people every single day, people from all different walks of life, genders, and there's something strategic that I do when I enroll students into trade school, whether that be woman, whether that be man. And I always ask them, I'm like, you know, what is your 5 to 10 year game plan? You know, what do you want to accomplish out of life? Because I want to build value into the program. I want them to get that vision in their head, so this way they can enroll into the program and I get my numbers. Right. And so when I ask them that question, when I ask the guys, for the most part, 9 times out of 10, it's I want to be successful. I want to have a career, whether it's in the field that we're discussing or whether it's whatever, just want to be successful, provide. I want to have a family. Right. And when I ask women that same question, it's totally different conversation in a way, similar but different. I want to be successful, but everything is about me. It's nothing about family. It's not, oh yeah, I want to have a family. It's I want to be successful, and that's it. And I think that's a microcosm of the societal shift that we see in today. You still have guys that want to do the 2 P's, that want to provide and protect, they want to have families, but a lot of the times you do have women now in this women empowerment era that want to focus on them. And guess what? That's their God-given right to want to focus on themselves.
Absolutely.
But to say that we haven't made any progress to come on July 4th and make it seem like, you know, nothing is happening, then to me, that's being out of touch. That's being out of touch, because that's not the society that I see. A lot of places where I go, I see a lot of women in hierarchy positions.
I don't think she was saying that though, Leel. But I do think, and I'm a man, I do think that there are still segments and things and situations where women still have a ways to go as far as securing and protecting their rights. And so I didn't hear anything wrong with what came out of her mouth, because personally I happen to agree with it. But you know, the man, you know, you still have to play that role. And look, men can't get so sensitive.
Bring us home, Lee.
Huh?
No, I'm saying bring us home.
Well, men can't be so sensitive. Last thing I'll say, men can't be so sensitive that when their women counterparts are going to school and getting degrees and interviewing for these jobs and getting them, they're not doing anything special, Leel. They're going back, getting educated, and putting themselves in a position to get these jobs. And I think more of our brothers, if they're honest with themselves, they're not going to college, they're not doing these things. And whose fault is that? You know, you have to, if you want to be better, you have to do better. And so that's how I feel about that. But good topic. I enjoyed it. Good topic.
That's a can of worms, Lee, that, you know, we don't have to open right now, because I do believe that although you're right, and I do agree with that last statement, it goes back to the culture. It goes back to Lee. Man, let's stay on this a little bit more, because Lee, you just opened the can of worms. Let's give it 2 more minutes, because Lee, obviously I understand there's always a about face conundrum, right? Okay, yeah, you can say this, but then there's that. I get it. But what we have to realize too is that Lee, I'm gonna say something controversial, but I think it's true. I really 100% believe in this. Women set the standard for men. They do. Women dictate what men do because a lot of guys do what they do for women. They make as much money as they can because guess what? They want to have women. Any guy that's telling you otherwise is probably lying to you.
Well,
They doing it because they want
Yeah.
women. Most guys, right? Let's call a spade, Lee. Maybe you grew up in a different time than I, but most case they're not. They doing it for women. Women set the standard. I remember situations where I was in middle school, and the guys that were like in my age group, they wasn't getting no women. It was the 8th graders. When I was in 6th grade, it was the high schoolers, right? It was the ballers. It was the scammers, right? It was the people that made fast money. Forget how they made the money. They just had a lot of money. A lot of them were scammers, right? You have a song out right now, and I am going to do a video on this particular song and the damage that is causing in the communities. You have a song out right now called "Spend That" by who is it? I don't even keep up with these people. One of these girls, whatever, famous girls or whatever, has a song called "Spend That," basically promoting scammers, right? And spend that money fast or whatever, right? That's the culture. That's what people are hearing. So now they think that that's a norm. That's what I got to do. And a lot of guys right now, look, I went to college. I got a bachelor's degree because I didn't believe in that facade. I didn't believe, even though my friends were scamming and making that fast money, that was my path because I was intelligent and I am intelligent. So I did the college route. But there's a lot of guys that, you know what? If I don't make this certain amount of money, I can't hoop, maybe I got to scam, right? Maybe what's college? So a lot of guys, women set the standard for a lot of guys, to be fair enough. And I feel like a lot of guys are not going to college because they want that fast money. They rather go and rob somebody that look like them. They won't even rob a white person. They'll rob somebody that look like them in their building before they go into another community and rob them.
The thing about it is, though, there's a whole nother segment of the population that don't have that mindset, that don't run in those circles.
Social media is reaching a lot of people.
When we go to social media,
that's a big thing.
When these are the people that you aspire to be, that's what you get, right? So my advice to those people is find your better role models, put your phones down, stay off social media, because glorifying yourself to be someone that you're following on social media is not going to get you where you want to go. And you're going to fall into this trap of some of the things that we're talking about right now. So that's what I'll end with, because, it's all about who you obtained. We talked about Jaylen Brown earlier in the show, and I'll bring it home with this. I want more of my young African-American people to strive to be him, as opposed to striving to be Drake. And there's nothing wrong with Drake, but I want them to strive to be. Are you
picking on Drake?
I'm not picking on Drake. But I'm saying I want them to strive to be Jaylen Brown. There's more of the Jaylen Browns from a educational perspective out there than they are of Jaylen Brown, the basketball player, or Drake, the musician. And I'll end with that.
Hey, how about we stop trying to be hoopers and rappers, period, and try to be doctors, like my eldest brother who's a doctor. I mean, how about we try to do podcasts and content or do things that impact the world, That's how I leave it. But anyway, Lee, I still don't understand the comments, but I'll leave it there. We could agree to disagree there. This has been a show of the Leel Show. I had fun. And it's been a long day for me, so I'm going to sit back and chill out till I go to bed. Salute to my cousin Fred. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, Lee. Before we leave, feel free to plug yourself in.
As always, After the Buzzers Sports Podcast, every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. Holla at your boy. That's what we do. I love this. Great topics today, Leel. The women's rights one. Like I said, we're going to agree to disagree on that one. But, conversation, Leel, is always the key. It doesn't matter if you end up disagreeing or agreeing. It's the conversation, and to conversate intelligently. And I think we just had a great debate. So I appreciate you, young man.
Definitely. And ladies and gentlemen, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the other side. Peace out.
Peace.
Sports, politics, conspiracy theories. We are here to give you our unique perspectives on things happening in the world. It's the one and only, The Real Leel on The Real Leel Show.